episode 16 of the SATO briefing series. Today we're talking about the Electra. The Electras are getting close to being completed, and as you can see here, this is probably the first video you've seen of them in what will be their release state. So we are getting ready to start a very short beta test for P3D version 4 and version 5 for these. They're only compatible in that sim for the fact that they've all been updated to PBR now. If anybody's still using FSX or the earlier versions of P3D, the version 1 package is still out there and compatible. This one does have a lot of additions to it, such as some added effects and stuff like that, which if you've been following the development briefs on Discord and on the Facebook page, you'll see that I've overhauled a lot of the lighting effects for this aircraft, and I've enhanced the textures and moved a lot of things around just for better file placement and things for P3D. Because before they were, I mean, it was for the older sims, so it's not quite as efficient as it probably could have been, and by maximizing that efficiency, I cut down the file sizes considerably from the first version. So that'll just overall help with, possible frame rate issues and things like that with these, on top of the texture enhancements that I did with them. All the textures, like the original package, are 4K in these, and this version here is the A model of the Electra, the freighter version. The interesting thing about this particular version flown by Conair is that unlike any of the other Electras that are around, they all have a 3,000 gallon retardant tank on them, except for this one here that has a 3,300 gallon tank on it. Now, I don't know specifically why this particular Electra has a larger tank on it. It's been speculated around that this particular Electra was more a special modification package just specifically for fighting lightning fires in Canada. The Electras, if no one's familiar with the Electra, they're essentially, if you look at them, they look like a P3 Orion. And that's simply because the P3 Orion was based off of this aircraft. So the Electra came first as a passenger and cargo carrier, and then came the patrol version in the P3 Orion. The prototype Orion was actually an Electra that was just slightly modified to basically as a proof of concept. But with that, the Electras, like the P3 Orions, are very good long loitering aircraft, and they are extremely fast for being a propeller-driven aircraft. The Orion is one of the fastest propeller-driven aircraft below 10,000 feet. And the Electra is no slouch either in that regard. They're not quite as fast as the Orion is, but it's still very, very fast. So I believe their maximum speed's about 411 knots, at least in the air tanker configuration, which are lighter, so they're a little bit faster. And according to Airspray, their Orion, or their Electras actually cruise at about 380 knots, which is almost as fast as some of these jet tankers cruise at that are in service currently. Airspray is the largest operator of the Electra still. They were looking at transitioning to the BAE 146 and RJ85, similar to what Conair has done. This aircraft you see here in front of me is actually retired now. It was only in service for about 10 years. And Conair decided to electively go to the RJ85, which is another 3,000 gallon capable aircraft, and the Q400, which is about 2,600 gallons, which is replacing their smaller tankers like their CB580s. So with the Electras, Airspray is the largest operator of them, along with Buffalo Airways now being the only other operator of them. Buffalo has 2 converted as air tankers, while Airspray has a total of 9 currently active in the air tanker configuration. And Airspray has a mix of them. Based on my research, they have anywhere from all versions of the A and the C models. So they've got A models that were passenger carriers and cargo versions that they've all converted to air tankers. So with these, along with the PBR updates, I don't know if you can possibly tell in this video or not, but the the dynamic lighting on the Electra now is much more realistic looking. And I'm in P3D version 4, and you can tell here that the dynamic shine of the aircraft, along with, it just overall was updated. So, and I've also updated the tank details on these, like I said, and the texture enhancements. So, and I've added additional additions to the textures for some of their Canadian territory assignments for some of the air spray aircraft, and just kind of basically touched them up. This isn't a huge, I mean, it is a huge update. If you're going, for me it was anyway, even though it's basically the same package, there's just a lot of moving stuff around and trying to get the files more streamlined. So it was just a very tedious process for these, and I had been planning on doing this project for quite a while, and I just kept pushing it back and pushing it back because of how tedious it was. And working with the original package, it just took a long time, it seemed, to get done with them. So, and FSKBT is, they make great aircraft, but they are extremely hard to get in contact with. I just happened to create a forum post, and they gave me permission specifically to do the air tanker modifications, which is the only reason why these are around, is because they gave me the permission to do that. And anybody who's tried to contact them since, or try to do just specifically the passenger and cargo versions, has not been successful in being able to contact them in order to update them to the newer simulators, which is unfortunate because, not everyone wants to fly an air tanker version of the Electra. Granted, that's how most of them are flying anymore, but I just happen to be at the right place at the right time. So luckily, these will be around in the newer sims now that I've updated them. So that's pretty cool, I think. As far as the excuse me, as far as the lighting enhancements for these go, they have the stereotypical firefighting pulse lights, which are an alternating wig-wag sort of pattern on the wings. That's done for most firefighting aircraft for added visibility, since they operate in lower visibility conditions with smoke and such. So that was one thing that I wanted to kind of integrate on a lot of these tanker projects, because almost every firefighting aircraft has them, and there's nothing in the sim world currently that even closely resembles them, aside from a strobe light, which is essentially what I've done with these, but they're now more in tune with alternating with one each other. They're not perfect, but at least you get that effect. And with these, they are separate from the landing lights and taxi lights on this aircraft. So in terms of aircraft, you don't want the wigwag lights on, you just want the straight landing lights. The landing lights can be switched on, and the pulse lights are not there. So there, and I believe it's the same way in the real aircraft. You can make the pulse lights be solid like a regular landing light, or they can alternate. So I kind of replicated that with these as well. The wigwags are in the landing light wheel well, or the landing light wells in the wings. And the landing lights, as well as the taxi lights, are a haloed effect. So they're kind of more, a little more dramatic looking. During the day, it's not necessarily realistic, but if you're in dust type conditions, it does look a little more realistic. Or if you're operating in, bad weather or something like that, those haloed lights look a little more realistic, I think. So that's also on the wings, and the taxi lights are also the same in that respect. So, and in terms of, let's see, what else did we update? Some of the flight dynamics changed, but not a whole terrible lot. The Electras are, the firefighting versions at least, are lighter than the passenger versions, obviously, by several thousand pounds. All of the interiors on all of these aircraft are basically stripped in the air tanker versions. So there's literally just the bare bulkheads inside, and that's basically it. Similar to what a a straight cargo conversion would look like on the inside is pretty much how most of these look like on the inside, from what I understand. Um, so they're considerably lighter. So I believe the Electra's empty weight's about 54,000 pounds or so. The passenger and cargo, or the passenger versions, I believe, are closer to around 60,000 pounds or so. So it's considerably lighter, which adds to their performance, obviously. So even with 3,000 gallons of retardant on board, um, they can still get off the ground in a relatively short distance, which is another good thing about the Electras. They're actually pretty short field capable, despite being able to carry some 3,000 gallons, which is around 27,000 pounds. So, ironically, the Electras, if you compare them to the BAE 146, the aircraft that's replacing them, they're almost as fast as those four-engine jet platforms are, and carry the same amount of retardant. And they can not only can the Electras carry similarly amount of weight, but they can also operate on shorter landing strips than the 146 and RJ85s can. So that's interesting. Granted, this aircraft's been around since the 1960s, so the fact that they're just going to update to newer aircraft isn't really that surprising, but that's also why Airspray decided to keep their Electras instead of converting their entire fleet to 146s. At least that's my understanding. They converted one BAE 146-200 to replace their Electras, and after converting a single aircraft, they decided to keep and stay with their 9 other Electras that they have currently flying. So, and I don't know why that decision was made, but it could just be that they have enough aircraft parts around that they could. They are the largest operator, so their resources pool is pretty considerable. And Buffalo also operates several as well, but only 2 of theirs are tanker conversions. All the rest of their Electras are their cargo transports and fuel haulers. So it's interesting that the Electra is still around, when other companies are just, they're going to these other jet or newer turbine powered aircraft. So let's see, what else do we have to talk about with these? Like I said, there's the way that these aircraft fly hasn't really been changed a whole lot. With, like I said, the exception to this one, all the other aircraft carry 3,000 gallons. This one, like I said, will carry 3,300 gallons if you load that into your Firefighter X. But we're looking at doing a short beta test here within the next week or so, I think, because they are very close to being done. It's just a matter of me cleaning them up and getting them ready for our beta testers to fly them around and see if they need any tweaking and fixing and whatnot else. So I'll probably be adding some additional views to these. They do come with some already on them, which they're absolutely fine. But I just think there needs to be a few more. Not a big deal. Doesn't really add any extra time, really, just for me just fine tweaking them. But yeah, that's kind of a sneak peek on the Electra, and they will be coming out this month in January. So that will be a nice new addition to everyone's virtual air tanker fleet. And thanks for tuning in. Tune into the next one.